Hey guys, Ponce here, and today I just wanted to discuss a bit of a topic that's been floating around my head for a little while now. So this notion that CSing is essentially an archaic concept, and does it really belong in MOBAs anymore? Now, before I get into the actual discussion here, yes, rest assured, I know how intrinsic CSing is to League of Legends. You can't really get rid of it at this point, just because League of Legends is designed to work with CSing. What would happen to hyper carries? For those of you guys, it's chomping at the bit, frothing, and like, oh man, you can't get rid of CSing. This is it's how you differentiate between skill between players, and what would happen, with the AD carries and the support and the economy. No, I know. We can't get rid of it. We're stuck with it at this point. Or are we? We'll discuss that a little bit towards the end of the video. But anyway, I know. I know. So, yeah. My main point is that essentially just CSing is not fun. It's not entertaining. It's the same thing every game. Like, when you just sort of sit there and think about it, when's the last time you actually really had fun and enjoyed yourself sitting there CSing? Like, how did it feel particularly rewarding or anything? Unless you're like super new to the game and just learning it, CSing has become old hat to all of us here. We go through the motions and we do it every goddamn game. It's like a Skinner box, essentially. It's just sort of like a reward for the sake of a reward sort of thing. And, like, it's an MMO grind fest to be there. It's filler that stretches out the game. And because, it's there because it's convention and no one has come up with anything better, I suppose. Or kind of like an RTS with excessive amounts of base building where, you go through the same, hotkey pattern every game and there's no variance to it. It's almost like there's a single player component to the game where, you build your 9 probes or whatever the hell it is because that's the most efficient way to bring in the resources that you need in relation to the resources that you put out. And then, you build your barracks and then you build your, hangar and whatever. And it's the same and there's no variance in it. It's not. And it's every game is the problem. If you do it once or twice, whatever. But, I suppose it's just like killing the 1,000 kobolds to raid Molten Core, whatever the hell. And, just to get to the actual exciting bits of the game. And it's every game. Except, just on a micro scale compared to, the aforementioned, World of Warcraft example or whatever. There is fun surrounding sort of CSing and lasting and that sort of concept. Unfortunately, it's just sort of, again, concept that surround it. So sort of like shaping the wave and understanding, the more complicated elements of, how they're going to push. So I'm going to kill this thing and I trim the wave just down. So in this case, it's not going to push into my tower and it's going to sit here. Or I'm going to hard push at this point because I've memorized the enemy cooldowns and, I know he can't come back to lane, so he's going to get denied this minion, which will give me enough time to back, and, sort of these larger considerations, and, stuff like that. This, gaining a tactical advantage and sort of, or, an objective advantage, and knowing you beat the opponent in a very specific way in that sort of sense. So oddly enough, sort of the concept of denying minions instead of getting them is more interesting to me. Like, it's a very PvP kind of thing to it going on there. Now, I also realize not everything can be just like, oh my god, this is so fun, explosions, every happy excitement, greatest gaming experience ever all the time sort of thing. I mean, there does have to be downtime and stuff like that and things that stretch out the game a bit, just to make the highs seem higher, the actual exciting parts of the game are, like good, and it's a bit of an adrenaline rush sort of thing where there is a difference. I understand that. But, the problem is, again, CSing and just sort of this laning phase, as you will, outside of the lane fighting, is it can last up to 20 minutes, and you're just CSing for 20 minutes every goddamn game. Obviously not 20 minutes every game, but it could, can conceivably last that long. And after that point, it's not CSing anymore. It's just CSing is replaced by the concept of wave clear, where you just kind of run in like this, and you spam all your abilities, and you just kind of knock things forward, and it doesn't really matter too much at this point, and you just it's not nearly as I suppose the game changes in a weird sort of way. But notice that Riot actually did sort of attempt to move away from CS very briefly. That was essentially what Dominion was, I suppose. Now again, the problem is it's like CSing is so I guess it was so or is so intrinsic in League of Legends that Dominion didn't really work. I mean, it required its own weird set of balance changes, and it always felt kind of wonky and strange because it was a game built on top of the basics of League of Legends, but it wasn't quite League of Legends. And then, yeah, again, you have those issues of who gains money at what pace, certain types of champions. The compositions don't make sense anymore, et cetera, et cetera. So I mean, Dominion essentially, I suppose, was sort of kind of like a half-assed attempt at that. Um, so maybe, years and years from now, when like people are leaving League of Legends in droves or whatever, because nothing's gonna last forever. Eventually, League of Legends is gonna get stale for a lot of people, and they're gonna try and do something else. So maybe in the distant future, Riot might move away from it and remove CSing entirely, and it'd be sort of a completely different game. But that wouldn't happen for a while. And it'd be interesting if Riot does it to see what they come up with, because generally speaking, they seem to know what they're doing. But at the time, there's no financial or kind of any sort of business incentive to completely upend everything. Although notice that as we go along here in terms of League of Legends, like the seasons are actually becoming quite drastically different from one another. So maybe we're moving towards some sort of big change at some point, just to keep the game fresh.
Find me greater foes.
So I don't know, like I'm always sort of curious if anyone has any sort of ideas how it could be removed from the game safely. It sounds like some sort of surgery. It's like, well, how do you remove the heart from something and keep it alive when the heart is, rotten or whatever? But I actually really like Heroes of the Storm as approach to the game. I suppose that's a natural thing to kind of mention here, given that we're talking about not having CSing, and that's just sort of the poster child for it. Now, I remember Heroes of the Storm catching a lot of flack for not having CSing, being like, oh, it's just a dumbed down MOBA, you don't need to CS. But I mean, let's be honest here. This is some sort of ridiculous false elitism here. CSing is easy. Once you learn the basics of it, it's just whatever, and it's make work. Like, let's not pretend we're all, MLG 360 no scope, LCS players or whatever here. Like, it's just we're right-clicking on stuff at vaguely the right time, and for some reason, this means we get a little bit of extra, well, a lot of extra money, because, we can look at a bar and kind of gauge that our damage is going to be enough to take it down instead of the minions taking it down. That's another problem. It, like, logically makes no sense, but it's a video game, and, I'm not saying everything has to make sense. But, I really do like Heroes of the Storm approach to it. It's a lot more action-y. Everyone on the team is sort of balanced to have a very specific role, and it can contribute quite a bit. I mean, it's actually why I really, really like playing support in Heroes of the Storm. Like, I feel like I have a lot of impact unlike or more impact than, for example, like supports in League of Legends and stuff. And so the threat of this crazy hyper carry that's going to naturally scale due to lack of, or rather, that's going to naturally scale because he has just as much money as everyone else, kind of thing. It isn't as much of an issue, at least in my experience, anyway. Although in general, a lot of MOBAs and MOBA likes I was seeing, it did seem like they have been sort of moving away from this concept of CS. Maybe it's just what I've been focusing on, I'm not sure. Like, I haven't really looked at too many MOBAs in a while. But, I feel like I'm not too far off with my assessment here, where CSing is just, game designers understand it. It's just sort of, it's make work. Now, at the same time, it also kind of feels like MOBAs are dying a bit. Like, I haven't seen too many new ones, and it's just like, it seems like no one really wants to make them because there's League of Legends, and that's sort of it. And it really reminds me of sort of World of Warcraft's dominance of the MMO genre, where it's like, when people do try to make MMOs, they're very World of Warcraft-like because they have to be, because I don't know, the business people tell them to do it like that, or that's because it's no risk. But the problem is World of Warcraft exists, so no one else wants to play this MMO or World of Warcraft clone, and just replace World of Warcraft League of Legends, and that's sort of the impression of the state of this genre / industry, or whatever you want to call it, for what's going on here. Which is, I don't know, unfortunate, I suppose. But, whatever emerges eventually, whether it be League of Legends evolving to the point where we don't have to deal with this archaic concept of CSing, or a new game comes along, or, whatever, I'm sort of interested to see what happens. Or maybe we've just reached the sort of apex of MOBA technology and we're not going to go anywhere, and it's sort of a dead end that, 5 years from now, no one's going to remember MOBAs. And it was just sort of a bit of a flash in the pan sort of thing. But, we'll see. I don't know. Do you guys have any ideas in terms of what could be done, sort of systems that could replace CSing? Like, I could probably come up with a few things, but the thing is, like, I don't want to make the video about that. Like, at least have the decency to say that I'm obviously not a game designer, so I could come up with a bunch of crap. So, I mean, but I wouldn't know how it actually fits into the game. So I don't think it's too important for me to rattle that sort of stuff off. But again, this is more sort of a thought experiment. So if anyone has sort of ideas, potentially what might be interesting, and it could be neat to discuss. But anyway, that's it from me, guys. I'm off to go stream now. Yeah, that's really all I have to say on the topic. CSing bad. I'll see you guys around. Thanks for watching.